with the is-equal vision. So what is the function or a statement we use the in is-equal?
If you use that particular keyword or a function, you would get one result out of a array. So let's say you are doing a select statement on a particular table, and a select statement can have one or more records in it. Now, if you are only interested in one of the values from that table, let's say the first record, then you can use the uh, keyword or the function. Now, you would use that in cases where you already have a variable declared. Let's say it's a character variable, and you would say declare my variable space character space the select something. So you have to use this function, because if you do a select into a character, then it will give you an exception saying inconsistent data mapping, or the target system source and target data types don't match. That is when you would use that. Select statement can be applied over any sort of an array, not just a database. If you have an XML array, XML tree structure, and some sort of an array within it, or JSON and some sort of an array, or DFTL and some sort of an array, you can apply it over there.
Okay.
Are you preparing for the
Apart from
interview?
this, no, I'm just asking this. No, this was actually asked by one of the interview person. So actually, I have referred long back notes, and that's I was trying to elaborate this more as much as I can, but this with the two examples. So that's
So
what
you
I
might
was
know
trying to
what
compare
the
with
function is,
your
or the
answers and see.
yeah, you might know what the keyword does or what the function does. So when you're explaining it to somebody, also try to give an example for that. So why do you need this? Where do you need this? And what happens if you don't use this? When you use these analogies, it will be much easier, or you can talk about the concept for a long time.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was hoping, but this is okay. There is a one more example which I was being asked by the same, but I don't know if I understood the question itself or not. But I think I have mailed you. Um, the question is, it says that he has declared a variable, and then there
Mhm.
is the next statement is a for loop, and after the for loop is writing it, and then he's writing a move statement. So he asked me if the for loop will execute as it goes directly to the move, or if it does not execute the for loop, it goes to the else.
It's a
So I
confusing
was
question.
not really.
So, since the question is not clear, I'll talk about the mm, terminologies and the syntax and the way in which we use those keywords, which is move, for loop, variables within a for loop, variables outside the for loop. So, since the question is not clear, I'll make the technical aspects of these keywords mm, clear. So, I'll explain that I know these concepts and these are how they work. For example, if a variable is declared outside a for loop, the variable can be of character or a reference. Now, if you want to declare a variable with the for loop, the only variable which is allowed is a reference variable. So for that, you don't have to write the statement called declare. You just say for variable space as an array, and then you would close that and for loop. So these are the two ways of using a variable, one within and the other one outside the for loop. Next, since you're using a variable outside the for loop, you would have access to the contents of the variable, or you can modify the variable within the for loop as well. So if you execute the for loop and you modify the data, it will be visible outside the for loop once you exit out of the for loop. Next, move command. Move command is applicable for reference variables only. So the outside variable that you declare, I'm going to assume that it's going to be a reference because you're going to apply a move command in it. So you declared something as a reference outside and you executed a move command within the for loop. So based on how many iterations of the for loop is getting executed, the move command gets executed so many number of times. So for example, if you say move to the next sibling and repeat type is name, then you might end up with the reference variable getting moved to the second, third, fifth, 10th, or the last occurrence of that array. Or you could also end up with the reference variable pointing to a non-existent field because you have moved and there's no more occurrences to move to. For example, if it's an array of 10 elements, you can't move to the 11th element.
Mm.
Like that. Anything else that I missed out? Anything that else you want to ask?
So, is there anything that the difference between the last move and the move? I know how it the syntax and that works, but when we do the last move, and
Mhm.
is there any specific the last move only return gives the Boolean values, right?
Okay.
True and false. And if we use the move, so how does it function? How does it?
Mm. You have used while loops
React?
in .NET, right? So there you have
Right.
an array, and over there you have iterators. So you say
Mm-hmm.
while iterator dot next, that iterator dot next returns you a Boolean value, and then you would say uh, get me the value from that iterator. So there's the iterator that's returning you a Boolean value, and the iterator that's returning you the, let's say, a string value. What's the name of the method? I'm not able to recall. Is it has next or is it just next iterator? Yeah, let's just continue. So iterator gives you two things. Iterator gives you in .NET, it gives you a Boolean value and it also gives you a string value. So last move is iterator, similar to an iterator giving you a Boolean value, and move command is you going to the next occurrence of the array by saying iterator dot give me that string value. Uh, what happens if you go execute the iterator dot next multiple times and you don't check for the Boolean value that is written by the iterator? Then you would get an exception saying um, no more elements available or array out of bounds, something like that. So move and last move are always used in combination. You first execute a move command and then you check whether the move that you asked to be executed has been executed successfully. So you execute a move first, and then you use the last move command and check has the move been successful. Now for a for loop, use a for loop, you don't have to do these things. You get an reference variable, and that reference variable will go through the first element in the array, and it will keep continuing until it reaches the last element in the array. And you can avoid the while loop, you can avoid move command, and you can avoid declaring a reference, because all these steps are taken care with the for instruction. You would use the move when you have to work with while statements, and that would be where the exit situation is not known to you. In an array, array is a bounded element set, and you will have to only iterate it from, let's say, 1 to n. In case of a while loop, you do not know when you have to exit. For example, you're going through a particular list, and in case you find the data that you're interested in, that is when you want to exit. So though in those cases, you would use a while loop. And in those cases, you'll have to use a move command and the last move command. So that it keeps on moving through the array. One more place where I see move command being used is without a while loop. People still use a move command, and they have a reference variable, and they want the reference variable to be pointed to a particular location in the tree structure. And the reason that they do that is to reduce the performance overhead. So if you always use the full path while referring to a particular x path, particular path in the tree, it will be a costly process. So let's say that you are accessing the 5th child within a tree. So a dot b dot c dot d dot e. So each and every statement you write like this: set a dot b dot c dot e. You do it like this, it would be a computationally heavy process, heavy task. So instead, if you move your pointer to that last child, then you save some time. So in these cases, I see move command being used, but as a coding practice, I would suggest that people should not reuse the pointers. Many organizations and many developers would declare one variable for a pointer, and then they keep moving that pointer to different places within the tree. So if they have to go to a dot b dot c dot d dot e, they would first move that. Then if they have to go to f, they would say move this pointer to f, then move this pointer back to b, move this pointer to c. So they keep moving that pointer, and technically the code that they write works, and technically the result that they get is exactly what they're intending to be. But it is much more cleaner to create a reference variable which actually denotes by its name the location where it is pointing to. So if you're pointing to input root, you have to write within the name of the reference variable in. If you're pointing to output root, you have to write out. You have to point, if you're pointing to environment, you have to write env, environment. You have to write this thing so that by looking at the variable itself, you know where it is pointing to. Next, now we know what is a tree structure: input, output, or environment, these things. Next thing what you have to write is the last field name. If you want to point to f, you have to create a variable called fenv. If you have to point to c, you have to write cin, so that when you look at the variable, you'll know that okay, I'm pointing to a purchase order in the input root. I'm pointing to a customer number in the output root. So you have to declare multiple reference variables when you want to save some performance, when you want to save some time. and keep the code clean.